There is a frame leaning against the fence post at the edge of my garden. 6 feet of shade cloth stretched over 1-inch PVC pipe, tilted back about 20 degrees, facing west into the evening wind. It cost me $12 to build, and I built it in an afternoon. It has no pump, no pipe, no power running to it, and not one moving part. Nothing in it can break. Last August we went 19 days without rain. The creek at the bottom of this hollow dropped low enough you could walk it in boots and never wet your socks. And every one of those 19 mornings I went out at first light with a jar, and there was water sitting in the gutter under that frame. It did not come up out of the ground. It did not fall out of the sky. It came out of the air while I was asleep. And the second method, the one I will show you at the end, costs nothing at all and does the same job. No well, no drilling, no permit, no contractor, nobody standing in your yard with a clipboard. Everything you need is at a garden center and a hardware store, and you will have change back from a 20. You build it in one afternoon and then you leave it be. There is nothing in it to wear out and nothing in it to break. And somewhere in the middle of this I will tell you why almost nobody in this country knows about it anymore. That part ought to make you a little angry. My name is Wade Caudle. I am 64 years old, and I live in a hollow outside Hazard, Kentucky, in a cabin I have kept for 38 years. The water in this house comes out of the same spring my grandfather dug by hand in 1948. I have never bought a drop of water in my life. Here is everything this is made of: the frame, the mesh, the tension, the tilt, the direction you point it, the trough underneath, the filter you build out of a soda bottle, and then the last one, the one with nothing to buy and nothing to build at all, which is the piece I want you to stay for. One afternoon of work, you set it out before sunset and walk away, and it fills every night. The air moves and the temperature falls, whether it rains or whether it does not. Now, let us get to it. Let me start with what most folks get wrong, because if you do not have this part, none of the rest will hold. You have been taught water comes from two places. It comes up out of the ground, so you drill a well and set a pump. Or it falls out of the sky, so you put a barrel under a downspout and wait on weather. 2 options. That is the whole map. There is a third. It is older than both, and it does not care whether it rains. The air around you right now has water in it, not steam, not fog you can see. Water vapor, floating, invisible, in every cubic foot of air over your property. It is there on a clear night in August. It is there in the middle of a drought. Air is never empty. That vapor is held up by heat. Warm air carries a great deal of it. Cool air cannot. So when moving air touches a surface colder than a certain temperature, the vapor cannot stay suspended, and physics forces it out. It quits being a gas and turns to liquid right there on the surface. A droplet forms, finds another droplet, they run together, they get heavy, and gravity takes them down. That temperature has a name. It is called the dew point, and you have watched it happen your whole life without once thinking about it. The sweat on a cold jar of tea in July. Your windshield at 5 in the morning. A spider web at first light, strung with beads of it. So here is the whole idea, and everything after it is detail. Give that process a big cold surface to happen on. Tilt it so the drops have somewhere to run, and set a trough under the low edge to catch them. So, let us build it. You want a piece of shade cloth mesh, 6 feet by 6 feet. Any garden center has it. What matters is the weave. You want it tight, closer to a window screen than to that loose netting they sell for shading tomatoes. Hold it up to a light bulb. If daylight comes through easy, it is too open. Tight weave means more fiber, and every fiber is one more place for a droplet to catch hold. That piece runs about $5. Then 1-inch PVC pipe, 14 feet of it, cut into 2 lengths of 4 feet and 2 lengths of 3 feet. That gives you a rectangle 4 feet tall and 3 feet wide. $2, or free if you have scraps behind the shed like I did. Lay the 4 pieces out with the ends crossing about 4 inches at each corner, and zip tie every corner twice, one tie each way. No elbows, no glue. It has to hold its shape in a light breeze, and that is the only job it has. A bag of 108-inch zip ties is $1.50, and you will use about 30 of them. Now cut your mesh down to 4.5 feet by 3.5 feet. That leaves 3 inches of overlap on every side to wrap over the pipe. Keep the offcut. It will skin a second frame, and I reckon you will want one. Last piece is the trough. A 10-foot stick of white vinyl rain gutter, $3.50, and you need 3 feet of it. Cut it with a hacksaw and fold the ends shut. 4 flat rocks out of the creek to prop the frame, and those are free. Now stretch the mesh over the frame and zip tie it every 6 inches all the way around every edge, not every foot, every 6 inches, and pull it as you go. You want it drum tight. Think how a tambourine is stretched across the hoop until it rings when you tap it. That is the tension you want across the whole face. Here is why it matters, and this is the part people skip. A mesh with sag in it holds low spots. Water collects in a low spot and sits there, still. Still water on a mesh does one thing before sunrise. It evaporates and goes right back where it came from. You walk out at dawn to a damp screen and a dry gutter. Tight mesh means the second a droplet gets heavy enough to move, it moves. It runs down the fiber, off the bottom edge, into your gutter. Push the middle of it with your thumb. If it gives more than half an inch, pull your ties tighter. Now the angle, and this is where most first attempts die. Folks build the frame and then lay it down flat, like a table, mesh side up. That is wrong, and it will cost you every drop. Flat means the droplets form and then sit on top in a film with nowhere to go. Sun comes up, mesh warms, and the night's work is gone before you have had coffee. You want that frame standing up and leaning back, 15 to 30 degrees off vertical. Prop it with those flat rocks at about the angle you would lean a picture frame against a wall so it will not slide. Steep enough that gravity pulls, shallow enough that the droplet stays against the fiber long enough to grow. That tilt is doing all your labor. You built it once, and gravity works it every night for the rest of your life. Now, where you put it matters as much as how you built it. Face the mesh straight into the evening breeze, not sideways to it, not away from it, into it. You need air moving through that mesh instead of sliding around it, because every cubic foot that passes through is one more delivery of vapor onto a cold surface. Walk your yard at dusk and stand still. Wet a finger if you have to. Whichever way the air drifts at last light is the way your frame faces. Get the bottom of the frame at least 12 inches up off the ground. Set it on rocks or a couple of cinder blocks laid flat. Air right down at ground level has been lying on warm dirt all day, and it is warmer and drier than the air a foot above it. That 1 foot of lift is free, and you will see it in the jar. And put it where the morning sun reaches last, behind the shed, the north side of the house, down in the shadow of the ridge. Every minute of darkness you protect is water in your gutter, because the moment direct sun touches that mesh, it warms past the dew point and collection stops. Not slows, stops. Set it out before sunset, walk away, come back at first light with a jar. On an ordinary night, temperature falling into the mid-50s, average humidity, no fog at all, a 6x6 setup will put between a pint and a full quart in that gutter. That does not sound like much until you sit with what it cost you. Nothing. You slept. If you live down in a river valley, or near the coast, or anywhere the cool air settles in the low ground overnight and fog comes up off the water of a morning, that same frame gives you better than 2 quarts. Build the mesh out to 10 feet by 10 feet on a frame 8 feet tall and 6 feet wide, and you are covering a family's drinking water for the day. But stay with me, because the second method is coming, and it costs nothing. It takes 4 minutes to set out, and my neighbor did not believe a word of it until he stood in my yard and wrung one out over a bucket himself. Now, water you are going to drink. I'll tell you what, let me be plain. because this matters more than any of the rest of it. Water out of the air starts cleaner than most water you will ever collect. It has never been in the ground. It has not run across a pasture or through a field. It has not sat in a length of old pipe, but it lands on a mesh that has been outdoors, and that mesh picks up dust, pollen, bird droppings, whatever the wind carried past it. So you treat it, every batch. You cannot see what is in it, and there is no reason on this earth to guess. The filter takes 5 minutes, and you build it out of trash. Take a large plastic soda bottle, the kind holding about 2 quarts. Cut the bottom off clean, turn it upside down with the neck pointing at the floor, and set the neck in the mouth of a clean jar. Now pack it in layers, working up from the neck. 2 inches of clean cotton first, cotton balls or a torn cotton rag, either one. Then 3 inches of activated charcoal, the kind sold for aquarium filters. A bag runs about $6 and will fill this thing a dozen times over. Then 3 inches of fine sand, the play sand out of the hardware store, rinsed until the runoff comes clear. Then 2 more inches of cotton on top so the pour does not dig a channel through the sand. Pour your night's collection in slow at the top and let it work down. It comes out the neck a drip at a time. That is not fast, and it is not meant to be. Then finish it. This is the step that makes it drinking water. Either bring it to a rolling boil and hold it there 1 full minute, or add 2 drops of plain unscented household bleach per quart, 8 drops to the gallon, about 1/8 of a teaspoon. Stir it and let it stand 30 minutes before it goes near your mouth. It ought to smell faintly of bleach at the end of that half hour. If it does not, dose it again and give it another 15 minutes. Filter, then boil or treat, every batch. That is the whole rule, and it does not bend. Now here is the part I said would make you a little angry. This did not quit working. Moist air, cold surface, night. That has not shifted 1 degree since my grandfather's grandfather. Then the pipe came, hollow by hollow, and ours came the year I turned 11. When the tap works, the old way gets set down. Not argued with, just set down and forgotten inside of 1 generation. Mind you, the folks who sell you water have known about condensation since before any of us were born. But a frame you build one Saturday out of $12 of pipe and screen does not send anybody a bill in July. A meter does, every month, for the rest of your life. There is no plot in it. There is just no money in telling you about it. So, the other one. This is the piece I promised you at the start, and it is the oldest thing here. It comes down from sailors, men working the North Atlantic on long runs, with the water casks going low. What they did was take a wool fleece and hang it over the side from the rigging, facing into the wind just before dark. Come morning they hauled it back aboard and wrung it out, and what came out of it was fresh water. Not salt, fresh. Out of the same air that had been blowing salt spray across that deck all night. That is not a story. That is just what wool is. Wool is about the most hygroscopic natural material there is, and that is a long word for a simple thing. The fiber actively pulls moisture out of humid air and holds on to it. Look close at a wool fiber, and it is not a smooth strand. It is scaled, like a pine cone, and that structure wicks vapor in and traps it. A dry fleece will take on up to 30% of its own weight in water vapor before it even feels damp to your hand. 30%. You can pick it up and it feels dry, and it is already loaded. So on a humid night, a big raw fleece hung out in open air is a sponge sitting in a river you cannot see. Here is how you run it. Get a large raw fleece, and raw means unwashed, with the lanolin still in it. If you do not keep sheep, call any sheep operation within an hour of you and ask for a coarse one. Coarse wool will not spin, so it has near about no market value, and half the time they will hand it to you free just to clear the barn. Bigger is better. You want 4 pounds of it at the least. Hang it off a fence post, a low limb, or a rope stretched between 2 posts, about chest height, 4 to 5 feet off the ground, with air getting at it from every side. Face it into the same evening wind you found for your frame. Leave it out all night. At first light, take it down over a clean 5-gallon bucket and wring it firmly, working from the top down in sections, the way you would wring a wet towel. Go over it twice. On a moderate night, 1 large fleece gives you between a pint and a quart. Near water, on a heavy night, more than that. Then it goes through the same charcoal bottle and gets boiled or treated exactly like the mesh water. Same rule, every batch. A fleece that has hung on a fence post all night is not a clean vessel, and I will not pretend to you that it is. Hang it back out that evening, and it does the whole thing again. Nothing to wear out, nothing to buy. Well, my grandfather kept a fleece on a nail in the spring house, and I was a good while understanding why, because we had the spring and we had the creek both. He told me one time that a man ought to have 2 ways to do anything that matters, and 3 ways to get water. He had lived through a summer the spring went thin. I had not. Let me run the whole thing by you one more time, slow, so you can write it down. Tight weave shade cloth, 6 by 6 feet, $5. 1-inch PVC, 14 feet, cut to 2 4-foot and 2 3-foot pieces, $2. 8-inch zip ties, $1.50. A 10-foot stick of white vinyl gutter, $3.50, and you use 3 feet. 4 flat rocks, free, $12 even. Zip tie the pipe into a rectangle 4 feet by 3, corners crossed 4 inches. Cut the mesh 4.5 by 3.5 feet. Tie it every 6 inches. Drum tight. Prop it 15 to 30 degrees off vertical. Bottom edge 12 inches up. Facing the evening breeze. Out of the first sun. Gutter under the low edge. Filter. 2-quart bottle inverted. 2 inches cotton. 3 inches aquarium charcoal. 3 inches rinsed play sand. 2 inches cotton. Then a rolling boil 1 full minute, or 2 drops of unscented household bleach per quart. 30 minutes standing. $12 one afternoon. A pint to a quart a night. By Sunday morning you will be standing in your own yard in the half-dark, with a jar in your hand, pouring water out of a gutter that no pipe runs to and no meter counts. $12. One time. That is the whole cost of it. Forever. Tell me this in the comments. Do you know a sheep operation within driving distance of you? Or does somebody in your family still keep wool? Because if the answer is yes, you can run the fleece tonight, with nothing to buy and nothing to build. I read every one of them. Next time I want to show you what my grandfather kept water cold in through August, with no ice and no electricity. It is nothing but a hole in a hillside, 1 board, and 1 thing he did to the floor of it that I have never seen another soul do. Take care of what you have got, and it will take care of you. I will see you next time.